Hello everyone, and welcome to another UK Gaming Network podcast. I'm Zoidberg, and this week we kick off our month of sport, and when we haven't been playing games, we've been enjoying a spot of Wimbledon on the TV. Every year it rolls around, and every year it puts us in the mood for a spot of digital tennis. Which game do we turn to for this? One of the top spin series maybe? No. The tennis game we play the most is Sega Superstars Tennis on the Xbox 360, Sumo Digital's excellent reworking of virtual tennis with a healthy dose of Sega fan service. There's one very simple reason why this game, over all the others, gets our vote, and that's because it places fun above everything else. At the end of the day, that's the reason why we play games. Battling it out with Alex Kidd on the beach from Outrun is about as joyful as gaming gets, and crucially the tennis itself is spot on as well. Over the years, as graphical technology has improved, sports games have gotten more and more photorealistic, but as they have, our interest in actually playing them has dwindled. Watching someone play the latest FIFA may be indistinguishable from the real thing, but it's so dull to actually play it. Give us the Mega Drive original any day over what the series has become. At least you could run away from the referee in that one. It's easy to blame EA for what's happened to sports games, but it's not entirely their fault, even if all their franchises have effectively killed off the opposition over the years. It's not that long ago when a major sporting event in the real world was met with a number of game releases attempting to cash in on the fever. Now we're lucky if we get 2 or 3 a year, so scared of the rest of the industry of going up against FIFA, Madden or NHL. It's a shame, as a bit of competition is good for gaming as a whole, and good for us as the ones who play them. For a long time, it's been our belief that the best sports games ever made are the ones that remembered to be a game first and a simulation second. Here's what we consider to be the top 5. This list contains games that concentrate on a single sport only. Multi-sport games will be the subject of another list later in the month. Number 5. NFL Blitz 2000. The problem with most American football games is that it takes such a long time to play a match. NFL Blitz fixed this by reducing each team to 7 players and making 30 yards your target for each series of 4 downs. Consequently, playing a game is much more enjoyable and fast-paced. The PlayStation version remains fantastic to this day. Even after they lost the license, Midway tried to keep the series going with Blitz the League, but that game put too much emphasis on Mortal Kombat style X-ray moves and forgot that the game itself needed to be enjoyable. EA picked up the license and tried to reboot it in 2012, and it was a decent enough game, but it never saw a release in the UK. Number 4. Everybody's Golf 2. There's been an entry in the Everybody's Golf series on every PlayStation system to date, and whether you're playing it on a console, handheld or in VR, it never fails to raise a smile. What makes it work is that the basics of striking a ball are incredibly easy to learn, allowing you to concentrate on where you're going to aim and how much spin your shot will require. Beneath the cute and colourful exterior is a game that requires a lot of practice, and there's seemingly always a new item to unlock or goal to achieve. Why this wasn't included on the PlayStation Classic is anyone's guess. Number 3. Windjammers. The only game on our list to contain a fictional sport, Windjammers is a Neo Geo arcade game that we have played consistently for the 25 years since its release. Basically, it's Pong with a frisbee instead of a ball, and a cast of Street Fighter-esque characters instead of bats. Just like a fighting game, each has their own arena and set of strengths and weaknesses to learn or exploit. Matches are fast and furious, and when you get a couple of evenly matched players, watching them can be almost as much fun as playing. We're seriously hoping that the recently announced sequel, due later this year, doesn't lose any of the magic. Number 2. NBA Jam On Fire Edition. Midway's NBA Jam will always be fondly remembered by Mega Drive and SNES owners, but surprisingly it was EA who produced the best game to carry the name in 2011. It's an exaggerated take on basketball with just 2 players on each team, where everyone has the ability to jump well above the height of the basket. Score a number of points without reply and your players will enter an on-fire state, and be able to pull off even wilder slam dunks than before. There's a huge amount of joy to be had in managing to smash the backboard with a particularly powerful slam. It also has the best in-game announcer in the history of gaming. You'll laugh out loud consistently as you play. Number 1. Sensible World of Soccer. Sensible World of Soccer took the basics of the original game and added a surprisingly in-depth management side to the game. It featured a team list that most games can only dream of, with every team from every league in every country Sensible Software could think of. The on-pitch action itself remained largely unchanged, with simple one-button controls allowing you to string together flowing attacks on the opposition goal. Although it was converted to consoles, none could match the feeling of the Amiga original, with its joystick control. Good as the game is, it's just not well suited to a D-pad. and we can't see another football game ever topping it. There's not been any news worth talking about this week, so we're going to move straight on to the new games that we've been playing instead. F1 2019 marks 10 years since Codemasters made their first F1 game on the Wii. The last decade has been spent tweaking and honing the game, so to say that the latest version plays brilliantly is pretty much a given at this point. What needs to be talked about instead is the new stuff, and the headline this year is the inclusion of F2. When you start your career mode, you'll spend a few races in the feeder series establishing your relationships with other drivers. These are presented in cutscenes that could have come straight out of the first TOCA race driver. It's a shame that the F2 portion of the career mode has been reduced to a few short races, as it would have been nice to have the option to do a full season. What this game excels at is making you always have something to do when you're out on the track, whether this is the R&D challenges during practice sessions or tweaking your fuel and downforce settings on the fly. Whether you play it with a joypad or a steering wheel, it's as in-depth and challenging as you want it to be, although you should expect a full workout for the arms if you opt for wheel control. This really is the complete package. It looks better than ever and can't be recommended highly enough for F1 fans. The original Super Mario Maker on the Wii U was a perfect package, allowing anyone to create their own levels and share them with the world. The first question that arises upon getting the sequel is, apart from the fact that it's on the Switch, what has it done to justify the 2 at the end of the title, other than including Cat Mario, obviously? The answer is not much, but the first surprise is the inclusion of a story mode on the game's menu. This sees you completing a series of preset levels in order to rebuild Peach's castle, and that's about it. Sadly, it doesn't take long to complete, but thankfully there are 2 other play options that provide new levels to play constantly. Actually making levels is incredibly simple, and you could knock something up in just a few minutes. At the end of the day, anything that gives us more Mario levels to play is a good thing, and that's why Super Mario Maker 2 will always be worth playing. If you don't already own the original, it's definitely one to buy. The Sinking City is the latest Lovecraft-inspired action-adventure to come our way, but sadly it serves as another textbook example of why cinematic trailers should be ignored. The trailer promised a monster-filled action game, but the game itself owes more to developer Frogware's previous work making the Sherlock Holmes franchise. You'll spend your first couple of hours just wandering around talking to people and scouring crime scenes for clues, the only monster action coming via cutscenes. While there's nothing particularly wrong with this, and the open world is nicely dank and atmospheric, it's not the game that you would have been expecting. I don't even think I loaded my gun until I was 3 hours in. When it comes, the action too is a disappointment. The game engine doesn't feel like it was designed for it, and it often feels clumsy. This is a game that will be worth a look when the price drops. My Friend Pedro is, and bear with me here, a fast action platform shooter where its hero wakes up after a knock on the head and starts receiving instructions to kill from a sentient banana. Essentially this means that you get to take out gangs of criminals while somersaulting over them in glorious slow-mo. While this setup certainly makes you sit up and take notice, it's thankfully served by a game that's a huge amount of fun. Early levels teach you the basics without dragging on, and each one ends by giving you a style score and the tempting offer to replay it and do better. Sadly, some of the later levels outstay their welcome, and the game struggles to sustain your interest as the joke wears thin. It's also unfortunate that it's been released so soon after the similar and better Katana Zero. Furwind is a short, enjoyable while it lasts 2D platformer for the Nintendo Switch that doesn't really do anything to make itself stand out from the crowd, but it also doesn't do an awful lot wrong either. It harks back to the 16-bit days with its graphics and gameplay, feeling like something that would have been right at home on the Amiga. The music is also pleasant without being intrusive, but the game does suffer from a couple of annoying difficulty spikes when it comes to fighting bosses. With just 15 levels to explore and a selection of challenge rooms to find, it's playable enough and will take you a few hours to finish, but there's ultimately not enough variety. Scrap Rush may look like it's taken its inspiration from Bomberman, but it actually plays more like a multiplayer version of Pengo. It's definitely not what we were expecting next from the makers of Octopath Traveler. Rather than blowing up your friends, the idea is to crush them by pushing blocks of scrap around the level. The real surprise is how much it caters to the solo player as well. Challenge mode keeps things interesting by throwing in levels where you have to gather up more scrap by smashing blocks quickly, rather than just being the last bot standing. Then there's Scrush, which is a single life survival mode, when new enemies constantly respawn and the level layout changes every couple of minutes. For the price, it's an easy game to recommend, and should provide hours of fun as a competitive game alone. finish off this first week of our month of sport, what better choice is there for Retro Game of the Week than Soccer Kid, which is the latest game to be headed to Steam from retro game specialist Pico Interactive. It says something that so many years after its initial release, this game is still a unique platform game. Simply getting to the end of each level isn't enough, as you have to do so without bursting or losing your football in the process. The ball can also be used as a weapon or as a makeshift springboard, and learning how to make the best use of the various trick shots makes it enjoyable to play through more than once. It was first released on the Amiga, but the best version actually came out a year later on the SNES, where level layouts were improved and the extra buttons on the joypad allowed for better control over the ball. Over the years there have been versions released on the 3DO, Atari Jaguar and PlayStation, but no sequel, which for a game that was as well received as this one is very strange indeed. Which brings us to the end of another show. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at UK Gaming Network. Why not tell us what your favourite sports games are in the comments, or suggest something you'd like to see as a future Retro Game of the Week. I'm Zoidberg for UK Gaming Network. Thanks for listening. See you next time.